Hey, everybody, it's Bob Boden here. And what you are about to see is something very special and near and dear to my heart. It's an episode of Greed. More specifically, it's an episode of Super Greed, which there are very few of, but I'll tell you the story of how greed came to life. So, in August of 1999, the 16th to be exact, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire premiered on ABC in prime time. And it was, for the most part, the first game show of the modern era, the first one in prime time on broadcast networks in over 40 years. There were a couple of small attempts over those decades, but nothing really lasted. And Millionaire was an attempt by ABC to revive the game show format for the first time since the Scandal era in the late 50s. And boy, did they score with this show. It was on for 2 weeks. Most of the episodes were half hours, and through the roof. It went through the roof in the first 3 days. It had already established itself as one of the most successful shows of all time, not just game shows. And that following fall, ABC was so enamored by the rating success that they put it on the air 4 nights a week. And ultimately, it died under the weight of its own success. And that was too many nights. But it was still successful for several years. It begat a syndicated show, which lasted for, I think, 12 years and was one of the most groundbreaking game shows of all time because it redefined what game shows looked like, sounded like, felt like. The intensity of the drama was heightened, and it really redefined the modern game show. And as happens with everything that is successful, there are imitators. So lo and behold, the third day of Millionaire, I get a phone call from Rack Clark, who is Dick Clark's son, and he said, Dad thinks that this Millionaire show is going to be a monster hit, and he would like to come up with something to compete with it. Would you be willing to create something with our company? And imagine my the flattery that I felt from that phone call. I said, absolutely. This was a Wednesday. I said, how long do I have? They said, can you bring in something on Friday? So I had 2 days. And in 2 days, I came up with a concept that was a team game. I didn't want to rip off Millionaire exactly, but I wanted to keep the feel and the intensity, the drama of it. So I came up with a concept that involved 5 players who at the time knew each other. They were either coworkers or neighbors or friends, classmates, something like that, maybe family members. And it was a show called All for One. A team was playing, and in order for an answer to be registered, the majority of the team, and in some cases the entire team, had to agree. So that was the original concept of All for One. Was I think I know the answer. My pal, my neighbor, my son-in-law, whatever it is, disagrees with me, and I need to convince him, or he needs to convince me that this is the correct answer, and only the prevailing answer from the team would move forward. If they couldn't agree, they would fail. So I brought it into Dick Clark Productions on Friday, as promised. The team there, including Dick Clark, Al Schwartz, Rack Clark, who I mentioned, and Barry Edelman, they loved the idea of the team game, but they wanted more drama. I had created a money ladder, $5 to $5 million in 7 steps. And they thought 5 million was too high, that the networks would be scared of that. And they also wanted more steps. So we recreated the ladder, and they asked me to come up with something a little more competitive. And the secret to that, which they recommended, was that they weren't people who knew each other, they were strangers, because they felt that the drama would be much higher if I wouldn't share my winnings with you, even if you ultimately got eliminated, you're still going to get a piece of the pie because you're my neighbor, my family, my friend, whatever. So we changed it to strangers, and I brought it in. Most of what I brought in, I believe, stayed the same, where there was a captain and there were four other teammates who were answering questions, but the captain had power. The captain had the authority to change one of the answers of his or her teammates, and also had the decision-making power to decide whether the team was going to progress to the next question or stop with the money they had won up to that point. So I brought it back in on Monday, and then we started talking about the title, and the room thought that All for One was too soft. And even though Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was not a hard-hitting title, it was impactful. It was a the word millionaire in any show uh, was pretty meaningful. So we brainstormed new titles, and at one point in the conversation, I said, "What if it's the greedy something?" Because the core of the show is, are you going to keep a lot of money or go for an enormous amount of money? And that is at its core greed. So we talked about the greedy group, the greedy bunch, the greedy team, and Dick Clark said, "Hold it, hold it, hold it. We're missing the point. Let's just call it greed." And so that was the title we went with. We brought it the next day to NBC. Rick Ludwin, who was the head of specials at the time, was the guy who took the pitch. Rick Ludwin is famous. He's left us since then, but he was a amazing man. He was most famous for pioneering the series Seinfeld, because even though it wasn't a special, it came under his watch. He developed it, he got it on the air, and he got deservedly the credit for its long running success. So Rick listened very patiently to our pitch, and he said, "You're going to sell this show. It's a great idea, but we're going to develop 21 because we own that format, and we're just going to revive that." Now, one could question, why would you revive a format that was tainted, that had been involved very heavily in the scandal era, which brought the game show industry almost to a screeching halt 40 years prior? But NBC believed in it. It was a smart financial decision for them because they owned it. So they passed, and the very next day, Wednesday, um, this is now 10 days after Millionaire premiered, and it was still on the air. We went to Fox, and we met with a renowned executive named Mike Darnell. Mike Darnell was famous for taking big chances, big risks. He was responsible essentially for the birth or rebirth of reality television in the late 90s. And he wanted to do a game show. He had never done a game show. And Mike was just fiercely, fiercely competitive. So he wanted not only to bring on a show that could compete with Millionaire, he wanted to bring down Millionaire. And that was a daunting task, but we came in at the right moment with the right show. He was very excited about it. You could see the wheels turning in his head about how he was going to make this look and feel pretty close to Millionaire, but have different team elements. And he just loved the show. He said, "This is going on. We're going to buy this." He wanted us to redevelop a couple of elements. He wanted something that was a head-to-head element in the show. He liked the team part of it, but he wanted a format beat where two players would go head-to-head. So thus we created what became known as the Terminator. And the Terminator was a device that a random light would land on one of the five players, and that player had the opportunity to challenge one of the other players on their team to go head to head in a single question showdown, and whoever won that showdown would take the other player's share of the pot. So we started with the Terminator. We were concerned that people wouldn't take the Terminator because they were so enamored with the team aspect of this, and they didn't want to pick off one of their teammates, nor did they want to lose the intellectual power of that person to help the team progress up the ladder. We started with the show and we realized that the Terminator may not work because people just were too nice, they were too scared, and they would perhaps not use that element. And the network really wanted to see this head-to-head challenge. So we invented an incentive, and we told the players upon whom the Terminator landed, if you want to challenge one of your players, we'll give you $10,000 win or lose. So if you were eliminated from the game, at least you won something, because if you were eliminated on a wrong answer as part of the team, you'd go away empty-handed. So this was a chance for somebody to at least guarantee that they would leave with something. And that did incentivize and encourage the players to take the Terminator challenge. But it got the network knickers in a knot because the standards and practices people said you can't bribe players to take on one of their teammates. And so instead of giving it to them automatically and forcing them to take the Terminator for the 10,000, we made it an option. And from that point forward, most of the players took the option because they wanted a guaranteed amount of money to take home. So the show started as Greed. After 6 episodes, the network made us change the title to Greed the Series because of this Terminator rule. Fox was unhappy that we were bribing contestants. And so when we caved in and made it an option for the contestants to take the Terminator or not, they said, well, this is a new show now. It's not Greed anymore because you've changed that rule. So we have to change the title. And I was flabbergasted by that. I had worked with not only with standards and practices in my prior career, but I'd worked with the standards and practices person, Darlene Tipton, Darlene Lieblich at the time. And I was like, what difference does it make? Shows make rules changes all the time. She said, no, if you're gonna make a rule change that impactful, you're gonna have to change the name of the show. I'm like, okay. So it was Greed the Series, but it was conversationally, it was known as Greed. Nobody really referred to it as Greed the Series, but that was the title card. So that's what we had to live with. And from that point forward, the show was called Greed the Series, and it lasted 44 episodes. Now, during the run, the network was very, very encouraging to give away money. So you'll notice that the questions on the show are hardly brain teasers because we wanted every team to get to the 100 because then the decision making started and the team game started at 200. So, the players pretty much succeeded at the first 4 questions, got up the ladder, but that wasn't enough to keep the network happy. On the first episode, which was a 2-hour episode, and by the way, that premiered 10 weeks from the day that we pitched the show. So in that 10 weeks, we built the set, wrote the questions, cast the contestants, hired the host, and got the show ready and rehearsed it and produced it. We only did 6 half-hour episodes because Millionaire was still a half hour at that point. And the network loved the 6 episodes we did, and they said, we're going to start with a 2-hour premiere. We said, hold on a minute. That's 4 out of our 6. That's 2/3 of our inventory that you're going to run the first night. We're going to run out of shows. and they decided to make the show an hour moving forward from that point, and they ordered another six right away, and then it we got subsequent orders of another 13 and another 13. And as I mentioned, the network wanted to give away a lot of money, so about two-thirds of the way through the run, they said, we want to do a promotion for 4 episodes called Super Greed. And instead of having a top prize of 2 million, the million became 2 million and the 2 million became $4 million. By far the highest prize ever offered on a game show up to that point. So now we're playing Super Greed for $4 million, and the episode you're about to see is, I believe, the second episode of Super Greed. And there's a team that's already won $1 million, and they're possibly going to go for $2 million. And if they get that, possibly go for $4 million. So the excitement was palpable. It was pretty amazing, and many of the contestants who went on the show got very wealthy from being on Greed. So we got to the end of Super Greed. Then we did another promotion called the $1 million Moment, where we returned contestants who had not won a top prize and gave them a second chance to win $1 million by answering a single question. And it turns out that uh, we made one of the 4 questions pretty darn easy, even though the player had to come up with 4 answers. It was pretty much a gimme, and the other 3 were much harder. And just by random, the player who wound up with the easy question was perhaps our most memorable contestant, Curtis Warren, who was known at the time for having spiky hair. He was an air traffic controller, and he got the easy question and won the $1 million. That's all the great news. It was a fairy tale come true for me. When we were sitting in the room with Mike Darnell, he asked Dick Clark, who is your showrunner? And Dick Clark pointed at me. I was not expecting that. I thought they were going to hire a showrunner who had done it before. I had never done it. But Dick Clark, God rest his soul, he believed in me. He nurtured me. He mentored me. He was a very special man in my career and my life. And he pointed at me and said, Bob's the showrunner. And Mike Darnell said, okay. So that was my first opportunity to be a showrunner. And I lasted through the entire run of that season. We wound up with 44 episodes. And then Mike Darnell's boss left the network. A new person came in, and she, plain and simple, did not like game shows. So we were locked in on a Friday night at 9 time period. We were doing quite well. We were the lead out from World's Wildest Police Videos, which is a strange combo, but we did extremely well for that time period for Fox. And she came in and she said, I'm taking the game shows off. There was us, and there was another show called Chance of a Lifetime. And she just canceled both of us pretty immediately after she got the job. So our fairy tale ended after 44 episodes. We premiered November 4th of 99 and went off in July of 2000. It was a life-changing experience for me. I got to do things I never imagined I would do. I got to work very closely hand in hand with Dick Clark, well, which was a dream come true. He was a childhood idol of mine. So that was incredibly special. Got to work with Chuck Woolery, who, he in a pinch, he was the guy who we could count on to host the show and be, as professional as anyone could be in the amount of time that we had. So it was just a great experience working with the Dick Clark Company, with Rat Clark, with Cindy Clark, with Dick, of course, and his team, Barry Edelman, Al Schwartz, the greatest people, just the greatest people. It was a time that I miss so dearly, and here we are 26 years later, and I still think about those glory days. So enjoy Super Greed.
If you like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel for more game show gems here in the vault. You can also find more fun stuff on our Facebook page